Literature. Literature most commonly refers to work of creative imagination including poetry, drama, fiction, non-fiction, journalism, and in some instances, song. Literature represents the culture and tradition of a language or a people. Theory. Theory is an idea about certain object based on certain perspective. Certain object here is literature, and certain perspective here is new criticism, Marxism, and etc. Literary theory. Literary theories are ideas of how to understand literature. It's simply theory about how literature should be interpreted. The definition of literary theories come out with our own definition and perspective. So, in literary theory, there are a lot of ideas because of different perspectives. The function of literary theories is as a guide to understand literary work.
Criticism has three stages. The first one is traditional criticism. In order to analyze or simply evaluate literary works, reader must know the background of the author. It could be portrayed by some questions such as where did he live, was he married, or was he a scholar, and etc. These things can draw to the reader to get to know about the style of the author in writing his work. The second one is moral criticism. It more concerns that the author is considered as a man above us, the reader, known as a popular one. The third one is new criticism. It first appeared in 1920s. New criticism seemed criticizing the previous method of analyzing and interpreting literary works that only focused on the extrinsic elements of it. In analyzing a literary work, the method used in new criticism is by doing close reading. Read word to get the detail of every word because every little piece of word in literary work is a part of the whole text that develops the meaning. It also helps to avoid any ambiguities in literary work.
Reader response criticism. Reader response criticism is theory which criticizes or interprets literary work based on the reader's knowledge and interpretation. It is believed that the reader's activity of interacting with the works results its meaning. The reader gets the meaning of the works by the way how they experience the text. The reader must be active and cannot be ignored. Reader response criticism began in 1960s and 1970s in America and Germany. The features of this criticism are Norman Holland, Stanley Fish, Wolfgang Iser, Hans Robert Jauss, Roland Barthes, I. A. Richard, and C. S. Lewis.
Feminism is the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities. It's organized activity in support of women's rights and interests. Feminist criticism is a place where several theories having similar basics. The basics is about the domination between men and women. In the 20th century, feminist criticism existed because of the existence of women writers and women rule from the traditional literary canon and the implications of patriarchy system in society. At that time, men dominated canon literature, and discouraged women did an action to reveal and involve themselves in literary work. In America and Europe, in the early 20th century, women's movement was not used to fight for vote only, but also for economical and social rights. To fight for their rights, feminists took actions proven by three waves of movements. Is it the first wave, the second wave, and the third wave? The first wave of feminism began around the turn of the 20th century. At that time, the legal reality for women was grim. At that time, women surrendered all property rights to their husbands. Women could not vote, and women could not hold public office. First wave feminism's main focus was on women gaining the right to vote. This was also known as women's suffrage. Women finally gained the right to vote in the United States in 1920 and 1918 in Canada. However, first-wave feminism was not inclusive, meaning it was focused mainly on rights for middle or upper-class white women. And then the second wave of feminism. It was prominent from the 1960s through the 1990s. It was born out of the civil rights movement and focused on issues like sexuality and reproductive rights. Whereas the first wave was not inclusive, the second wave brought in women of color and of differing economic classes. Second wave of feminism tried to demonstrate how issues of race, class, and gender oppressions are all related. It also differentiated between sex and gender, in which sex as being biological and gender being a social construct, varying from culture to culture and changing over time. Another third wave of feminism began in the late 1980s and it's still continuing today. Third wave feminists believe that every woman should define her femininity for herself, and that women shouldn't have to give up stereotypically feminine traits in order to be treated as equal. And the important third wave feminist is Audre Lorde. Audre Lorde was a black feminist, poet, and activist, an open lesbian. Lorde focused on the importance of unity among people of different races, genders, sexual orientations, classes, and abilities. And then Rebecca Walker. She is an author and educator whose 1992 article in Ms. magazine was the first to use the phrase third wave feminism.
Postcolonial theory. Postcolonial theory is a theory which is used to interpret colonial culture and literature from Europe and another colonial country. In postcolonial criticism, there are many methods and theories which are used to interpret the works such as feminism, psychoanalytic theory, new historicism, and others. It depends on someone's point of view. The figure of this theory is Edward Said. He is the most outstanding figure of this theory. He wrote a book titled Orientalism in 1978. This book talks about European representation of the Middle East to consider how a mindset of Orientalism shaped academic study. For shorter, this book talks that West country or Europe is better than East. They are the superior while the East is the inferior. Another feature of this theory are Homi Bhabha, Frantz Fanon, Gayatri Spivak, Chinua Achebe, and many others.
Psychoanalysis theory. Psychoanalysis comes from word psychology and also analysis. Psychology is study about human behavior and mind, while analysis is a method used to analyze something. Psychoanalysis is a method found by Sigmund Freud. Freud believed that the human is somehow controlled by unconsciousness. This method then used in literary criticism. It is believed that aspects in literature such as the author, the reader, and the text itself psychologically can be analyzed. Freud's general idea was that literary works are the products of unconscious processes that it is possible to understand how physical forces can be part in them. Literary work is seen as a dream. The text sets aside in real content behind its obvious content. The aspects on psychoanalysis theory is first, the author, second is the character, third is reader, and the fourth is text. Sigmund Freud divided the division of human psychologically into three parts, which are id, ego, and superego. First, id. It is the most basic part of the personality and wants instant satisfaction for our wants. For example, a girl orders a cake in a cafe because she is very hungry. But then, besides her sitting a girl with a cake in the table. Then she takes the cake because she is very hungry. This is the role of it. Second is ego. Ego deals with reality, considering what is acceptable in a society. For example, a girl orders a cake in a cafe because she is very hungry. But then, beside her sitting a girl with a cake in the table, but she doesn't want to take it, because she knows it is not acceptable in society and not appropriate. This is the function of ego. Third is superego. Superego based on moral and judgment about right and wrong. Even though ego and superego may reach the same decision, superego is more based on moral value. For example, a girl orders a cake in a cafe because she is very hungry, but then beside her sitting a girl with a cake in the table. But then she thinks that take the cake owned by someone else is wrong, so she doesn't do that. Actually, when she does that thing, she would not be coached by police, but she wouldn't do that. This is the function of superego. The second outstanding figure of psychoanalysis theory is Carl Jung. Carl Jung was an early supporter of Freud because of their shared interest in the unconsciousness. Besides, they have some differences each other. So, the differences between Jung and Freud is that first is about the nature and purpose of the libido. Based on Jung, the nature and purpose of the libido is a generalized source of psychic energy motivating a range of behavior, while Freud stated that a source of psychic energy is specific to sexual gratification. And then, second is about the nature of the unconsciousness. Based on Carl Jung, a storehouse of repressed memories specific to the individual and our ancestral past. But based on Freud, a storehouse for unacceptable repressed desires specific to the individual. Third is about cause of behavior. Based on Carl Jung, past experiences in addition to the future aspiration, while based on Freud, past experiences particularly in childhood. The third outstanding figure of psychoanalysis theory is Jacques Lacan. Lacan suggests the existence of three orders of human experience. First, the imaginary. This concept corresponds to the mirror stage and marks the movement of the subjects for primal need to what Lacan's terms demand. As the connection to the mirror stage suggests, the imaginary is primarily narcissistic even though it sets the stage for the fantasies of desire. Whereas needs can be fulfilled, demands are, by definition, unsatisfiable. In other words, we are already making the movement into the sort of lack that, for Lacan, defines the human subject. Once a child begins to recognize that its body is separate from the world and its mother, it begins to feel anxiety, which is caused by a sense of something lost. Second is the symbolic. Whereas the imaginary is all about equation and identifications, the symbolic is about language and narrative. Once a child enters into language and accepts the rules and dictates of society, it is able to deal with others. Third is the real. This concept marks the state of nature from which we have been forever severed by our entrance into language. Only as neonatal children were we close to this state of nature, a state in which there's nothing but need. A baby needs and seeks to satisfy those needs with no sense for any separations between itself and the external world or the world of others. For this reason, Lacan sometimes represents this state of nature as a time of fullness or completeness that is subsequently lost through the entrance into language.